Do 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 doobie wala doobie wala. Nakakaila mo kalate. Song laman ni mo lulu pizza. Papakwila banana gili gili. Pinong otalami. Pinopule pakwila.
Right. Hello YouTube, welcome back again. It's Janie Trice, and today I'm joined by Carl Vaudrin.
Hey.
So Carl actually made the Minion Rush soundtrack for pretty much the entire game, and yeah, that must have been a pretty huge, project, right?
I have to mention I did not do all of the music from the game because we were, many composers. I made, most of it, I could say.
Yeah.
Because I was there from the start of the game when it was before it was released to 3 to 4 years after. So I did a few updates afterwards.
Right. Okay. So yeah, if you want to start, telling us a little bit about yourself. Yeah.
I'm a composer. Before Minion Rush, I went to UCLA to study film scoring. So that's where I met, a few people over there who got me involved in different games, and I met Jesper Kidd, for whom I work as an assistant on Assassin's Creed, and this is what brought me into game music. I was very fortunate to have these, especially in LA, there's a lot of people there, and so I feel very lucky I was involved in this game. So this was my first step into games. So I said, oh, I want to do this for life, So yeah, I started there. I've been in LA for 3 years. So I'm from Quebec in Canada. So I had to come back because my student visa expired. So I came back, and a month after, just from Facebook, one of my friends said, "Hey, you're back from LA, so I have a few projects for you. Do you want to come and meet us at Gameloft?" So then I started working at Gameloft like 6 months afterwards, after that meeting, and I worked for them for 6 years, and I did a lot of games, and Minion Rush included.
Oh, that's amazing. So I think you did, as you've mentioned, obviously other Gameloft games. So I think one of those was the Spider-Man game, right?
Spider-Man, I might have done a few ambient, but I was not main composer on this.
Right.
Pascal Dion and Alexandre Jacob were.
Right, okay. So in terms of the Minion Rush soundtrack, what sort of inspirations did you take for those?
The Minion Rush?
Yeah.
It's like the movie. I mean, Despicable Me, if you look at it, it's very eclectic, and it's very silly, it all over the place, over the top. You have disco, you have funky, you have rap, you have hip hop. So I had to I had to go into this direction of not being stick to one style. So I did some research to pick all the cliches you see in those styles. For example, in the elevator, elevator music, for the mall, Minion Rush, there's a part where probably in the first updates, you had the mall. I don't know the new version of the game, if it includes this. But I had to compose some yeah, I had to compose a bossa nova in the style of Gilberto. So this was great to have to study a style and make it my own, like if I was, you know, a bossa nova composer, but I'm not. So this is very interesting for me to do. So I had to, you know, jump from one style to the other. So that was my approach, and the approach I was expected to, you know, I wanted to keep the brand signature, if I
Yeah. So with Minion Rush, you sort of sold to Despicable Me movies the overall range that the you know, movies had, and kind of worked them into how Minion Rush was as a game, such as the beach theme, which was more relaxing, and then obviously the mall theme, which, as you said, was more elevator music. So yeah, that's really impressive, as I say. So out of all the pieces that you did for Minion Rush, which would you say that was the hardest to come up with and kind of work on?
The hardest.
Yeah.
Hardest. Let me see. I'm looking at the cue sheet here. The hardest. It's hard to say, because I have to say that this game was such a pleasure to work on. I didn't have to force myself to do any of this music, and I have to mention all these songs, all these little snippets of music, they were all done in 2 to 3 days each.
Wow.
So we didn't have time to think, do I do it this way? No, there's the disco song that took me, you know, maybe 1 week or 2 to do with the vocals and everything. You know, I had guitar players. I'm not a guitar player, so I hired my friend Pascal Dion, who's a Game Love composer as well, and he played a guitar on the song. But the hardest one, which one would it be? I think there was the main theme from Hector Pereira. You know, the
Oh yeah, the
so this theme is not mine. It's Hector Pereira from the movie. He did the score for the movie. So I had to arrange it, but at first, when Arnaud Galland came to me, the audio director, told me, we don't know if we're gonna have the license for the music. So he said, just try something in the style of, and we're gonna work it out. And if we have the license, we're just gonna drop whatever you had done and or reuse it, and you know. And we had the license, you know. A few weeks after, I happened to know that we had the license from the legal department. So this music, I did maybe 2-3 versions of, you know, my take of the main theme, but I didn't have the right at the moment, so I had to stay away not to plagiarize, you know. So this music was very hard to do, because, you know, if you have to mimic or be in the shoes of another composer, it's very difficult, because it's not coming from your guts, you know. It's not from your knowledge, from your experience. So it was difficult for me to mimic this style. And so the tune was approved by the legal team. So I had to drop all the compositions that I did. But then later on in the game, in the updates and everything, maybe we could reuse the theme you composed as a main theme, you know.
Mhm.
And so we reused it in the factory bosses, like Vector.
I see. Yeah. Wow.
The Vector and the other little girl, what was her name?
Mina. Yeah.
Mina? Yeah, so we used 2 of my attempt to do a main theme for the Minion Rush before knowing that the license was accepted.
Wow. That's crazy. I really didn't know that. That's awesome.
These are all information that I never, got to talk about because, no one's interested.
Yeah, I get that. But as I say, the Minion Rush community sort of had a bit of more of a comeback lately. So people are starting to ask questions such as the origins of the music, who made them and things. So I'm just trying my hardest to kind of get the answers out there, if you get what I mean.
Okay, I'll keep it short. Sorry.
Yeah. No, honestly, it's great hearing these answers. For making, music for games in general, what would you say kind of the processes are working up to getting them out and creating?
What's the process generally to get a piece of music? Well, at Game Love it was very different because, not much different because we all have deadlines, and I had to work with very tight deadlines. So you have to, first of all, you have to be very good at all styles. And this is very challenging because, I'm not a rock composer because I never been a rock star or so I had to study all these styles and all the mixing techniques as well. It's not only composing the music. It's easy to go on the piano and play some melodies and well, it's easy for a few musicians, it's easy. But to produce it, to record it, to mix it, to master it, it's everything in a couple of days for each song. So that is the main challenge. Just to go back to your question, which was
about kind of the process of
the
making
process.
it.
So the process is different for every situation, but for Minion Rush, since we didn't have much time, so I would sit on the piano and come up with melodies idea. So it all starts with melodies and harmony. It's all on the piano. I'm sitting there, I play piano. You don't see it, but I have a piano here. I'm in the studio right now.
Oh, all right.
So yeah, it all starts there, and then I go into the sequencer and I start, putting tracks to tracks, and I start with the drum and bass because it's the foundation. If there is a drums, but if there's no drums, for example, the moon cue. When there's a moon minigame.
Oh yeah.
So you go on the moon and you grab bananas. So this was more orchestral. So in a more orchestral piece of music, I do the same. So I solidify the harmony and the melody, and then I go into the sequencer. But it takes maybe an hour or two to do harmony and melody, and it takes maybe three days to produce. So it's not hard to come up with music, in your mind. It's hard to put it out and make it sound good, make it sound believable, because it's all virtual instruments that you hear there. Some of them I hired a real guitarist, but all the other instruments, like anything, it's all virtual. So it's all produced in the box.
Right. See, that's really interesting. As I say, I don't know anything about this, but wow,
just let me know if I'm just too technical.
No, seriously, it's great. You're going really into depth. It's as I say, I'm up to now I was kind of clueless on this sort of stuff. It's really interesting learning about how much is kind of put into it. But to you, what is your favorite track that you made for Minion?
There is one that I really loved. It was not released in the game. Let me tell you why. So there was a Christmas update that we had to do, and you see all the minions around a Christmas tree, and they're all having fun, having some presents, and then you go in another scene where you see the minions singing, but they're in the background. You're kind of Yeah. That was the intro, and then you went into the menu where you see these minions singing a Christmas carol. So the director comes to me and said, "Why don't you try and record some vocals?" And okay, I'm gonna try it. But what's the challenge there is because of the Minion voice signature that is so hard to replicate. I had to study and make sure I was, not off-brand, because that Pierre Coffin, he did all the voices from the film. Well, maybe not all of them, but this for me was a real challenge. And why I love it, it's because I had to make sure, because I recorded everything slower and lower. And then I speeded up everything so everything would come up, to the right pitch. So this was very difficult and mathematical. I had to calculate what is the logarithm that works for the speed up to make it work at that tempo and that pitch. So that was very, very challenging. And you have it in the bundle I sent you. All vocals were done by me and recorded at a slower tempo and speeded up at the right pitch. So it's like a tape, recording on tape.
Yeah, I get that. That's amazing. As I say, no idea. So would you say that Minion Rush was one of your favourite Game Loft games that you worked on, while you were with them, or would you say that it was one of the others?
This was my favorite. I have to say. It's well, first of all, you have to compose in so many styles. So I would never get bored. Never. So every day was like, oh, this another challenge. I have to do this update for Valentine's Day. Oh, this is nice. So I go for the cliche. I go for a Barry White, cliche of tune. So and the next day you have a funky groove, or a reggae song for El Macho, so I would say it's my favorite of all Game Loft games I worked on.
Yeah, it is definitely more of the broad factor of it, the fact that it's so out there and it's so different. Overall, if someone is wishing to get into, the exact same career that you are, creating music, I suppose even for games like Minion Rush, what would you recommend to them?
First of all, you have to love what you do, and people will see it, and they will want you because you're passionate of what you do. And this is, I cannot stress more on that, because I think that's what brought me work. I mean, I went to this interview at Game Loft and I was passionate about music for games, even if I didn't compose for games before Game Loft. I composed for short films, but never for games. So I convinced them that I was passionate about it, and they took a guess, and okay, we're going to take you and see what you have to say. So I would say never shy from sending your CV or resume to companies, and be proud of what you have done. And even if it's small, just put it forward and just do it. I mean, if you don't do it, nobody's gonna come to you. So if you're a starting composer, I would, start up with a basic website where you have your music. You put all your best music at first, and then you just remove all the crap, all the songs you think it doesn't represent you, and then you just wish for the best, and you work every day hard at making your sound better. Especially if you're a virtual composer, Well, I do compose for real musicians, but I have to say like 50% of the time, it's all for virtual instruments.
Mhm.
And if you cannot make them convincible, convincing,
Yeah.
if you can't convince people that they're real, well, you're never going to make it, because you're going to sound like General Media back in the 90s.
Mhm.
You know, it's one thing to know music, but it's a second thing to know how to produce. And I would say to always work both at the same time. If you have a level like this to compose, but you're there to produce, so you're missing out. You have
Yeah.
to bring up your producing level.
Mhm.
So that's my how do you say advice to the new composers.
Yeah, that was amazing. As I say, yeah, just like, you know, I'm sure a lot of people take that into account, you know, people who are thinking of getting into it. But yeah, actually, that is pretty much everything I wanted to ask you about. And I would just like to say, you know, a personal thanks from me, because I've, you know, for the past 7 years nearly now, you know, the music in Minion Rush, I've kind of grown with it, and I think that goes for a lot of people, because, you know, the music for that game has almost become, you know, iconic for, you know, mobile gaming. So yeah, thanks so much for joining me.
It was a pleasure, Jaden. Anytime.
Awesome. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I will see you later.